Okay, it's setting up to go live on YouTube. Here we go. We're gonna share. I'm gonna put it on my Facebook feed. Post. Okay, Aaron, I just shared it on Facebook. Oh, my uncle is so sweet. Okay. Did you see it?
Where's it at? On Facebook?
It's live on Facebook, yes.
Cool.
And so you could share with your people.
I sure will.
And then we'll get started.
Did you at me?
Oh, you know what? That's what I edit posts. Duh. Hey. Perfect. Save. There we go. Okay, you guys, come on in. You guys can watch us. You hold on for just a second. We are setting up. We're about to go live here. We're about to start our chat. I added you.
There we go.
Okay. People will come on in, and then the great thing is that I will edit and replay, so we get lots of conversation from our replay. So that's awesome. But let me go ahead and do our real introductions here. So welcome everybody to another edition of Keey Konversations. For those of you who don't know, I'm your girl, Waukesha Hayes, aka Dr. Y, founder and CEO of the Keey Group, and yes, the host of the new platform, Keey Konversations. I'm excited today. First of all, you guys, it is Father's Day. It's Father's Day, and I could not be more thrilled to celebrate all fathers. My husband, paying tribute and honor to my father, to my stepdad, but also to all the cousins and uncles and really close friends in my network. I really, truly honor and adore you guys. I appreciate you. But I also wanted to do something different today. Normally, this platform is designed for women leaders, current and aspiring women leaders. But today, we are sharing the platform with my good brother, my friend, my colleague, Dr. Aaron Griffen, and we'll talk a little bit about how we know each other, where we met, and all of that good stuff. But I wanted to talk with Aaron today, or Dr. Griffen, Dr. Aaron. I wanted to talk with him today because I think it's important and it's perfect time, and it's a mesh of a perfect storm to have a conversation about reframing the portrayal of male African-American Black male leaders, right? And really not even just leaders by attaching title, but redefining a portrayal of Black men. And I wanted to bring you guys someone who was authentic in every sense of the word. And that means I wanted to bring you someone who was not only educated in the field of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I wanted to bring you someone who was an actual practitioner, but I also wanted to bring you someone who has the lived experience to mesh all of those things together. So, brother, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to be here today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I give you guys an opportunity. I could read a bio and all of this stuff, but I give you guys an opportunity to share with the Keey community a little bit about you, a little bit about who you are first as Dr. Aaron, the person, and then tell us a little bit about who you are professionally. And then we are going to dive into the deep conversations that I can always have with you. Like we will give the people a peek into our conversations that we have offline all the time whenever something comes up. So that's what's going to happen today.
Absolutely, that's fine. So Aaron Griffen, raised in Corpus Christi, Texas. I know we've already shared this link, so shouts out to Hillcrest, North Side, Northcrest, Roy Miller High School, Driscoll Middle School, Solomon M. Coles Elementary. Grew up in Corpus Christi, graduated from Roy Miller High School. Grew up on the north side of Corpus Christi, which is now pretty much gone due to gentrification. I'm going to go ahead and name that right now.
Wow.
Gentrification has wiped out our entire neighborhood on the north side, which includes Northside Manor, B.N. Leathers Projects, TC Air Center, the pool, y'all know about the pool, and Hillcrest, most of Hillcrest, where I grew up from 5th grade all the way until I graduated high school. After that, I went to Prairie View A&M University, historical.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, you know it. Black folks out there. Welcome to the SWAC fam, you. Welcome.
Oh, yeah.
So Prairie View A&M, 45 miles northwest of Houston. Completed my first bachelor's in English after 5 years. I love to tell people, yes, it took me 5 because I had a great time at Prairie View A&M University. Lost my scholarship the very first year I got there, but I had a great time. Finished my English degree, went back and got my history degree. And then after I finished my history degree, I became a teacher in 1999 in Aldine ISD in Houston, Texas, where I taught for years. Got my, oh, you went to Nimitz, huh?
Yes, I'm a Coug.
That's right, you from Nimitz. So got my master's degree from Prairie View, became an assistant principal. So in total, I was in Aldine ISD at Grantham Academy for Engineering for 15 years, 7 years as an English teacher, football coach, basketball coach, track coach, and then as an assistant principal for 8 years before being recruited out of Houston to Colorado Springs. I received a message one day on LinkedIn saying, hey, would you be interested in applying for a high school principal job? So I applied for the job, got the job, moved my family 16 hours to Colorado. Had never been to Colorado ever in my life. My son and I both have asthma, but Colorado isn't as cold as people think it is. It's actually pretty sunny. So we moved to Colorado. I was a principal at Sierra High School for 4 years before moving into my current role as Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at DSC Public Schools. During this journey, Dr. Y and myself were cohort members in the 2010 cohort at Texas A&M University, Urban Education Program with curriculum and instruction. So Dr. Y and I have had debates. We've been on the same page. We've argued. Our cohort is pretty interesting because boy, we used to have us some powwows and not powwows. That's not a good word to use anymore.
No.
We've had us some disagreements and some debates and some arguments, some tears, driving from Houston all the way to College Station and back. It was an interesting road, but you know, I would never take that away. I would always go back. If people ask me if there was anything I would change, it wouldn't. I wouldn't change anything. And I'm very proud to say, I believe we had 14 that started. 11 of us actually defended. 11 of us defended. Out of that 11, 2 of us defended at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte with Chance Lewis, and then the remainder of us defended at Texas A&M. So 11 out of 14, that's a pretty good rate.
It is, especially since one of the things that is often talked about in doctoral programs is, and I remember the first day it happened to us, on our first day of class, they said, look around, take a look at everyone in the room, and the numbers statistically will not reflect. Everyone will not be at the finish line. And we kind of made a pact in that moment that we were all going to get to the finish line.
Absolutely.
And I think that sense of unity was powerful. It gave us, I'm with you. I just would not change any part of that journey, not even the 2-hour drives in the middle of the week, going to and fro, because I think it just really made us all better people. And we are forever linked to what I believe is some of the most top-notch professionals that across the globe. I will match us up against anybody.
Absolutely agree. Some of us have gone on to do some pretty wonderful things, but there's a whole lot more work to do. And we're all in the game together.
It is. And so with that, let's just kind of jump into the conversation. And I think for me, there is the hot button discussion right now is diversity, inclusion. anti-racism, equity, and I chuckle sometimes on the inside because there's, all of these new companies and even individuals, they're now experts in this field of diversity and inclusion. And I'm thinking, boy, we were on the train a whole lot sooner. This is not new conversation for us.
No.
Our program and our different niches and our different areas of expertise, while different, was all rooted through this critical race lens, through this multicultural perspective, with diversity, equity, and inclusion being at the forefront of everything that we've done. And I think that it's it's a little shocking, but I'm like, thanks for joining on. Thanks for coming aboard the train. but Aaron, before we get started, talk to us a little bit about your research, because I think what people don't understand is when they hear that our degree is in curriculum and instruction, what people don't often understand is that we are all very niched. We are all experts in different areas of curriculum and instruction that transcends even education, just the field of education alone. Talk to us a little bit about your journey in this space of DE&I.
Well, let's go back real quick because you said something that I definitely want to say live.
Yeah.
When people walk around telling you that they're an expert, I don't see how that's even possible. In our network, we say DEI is a journey, not a destination. There's no possible way for anyone to be in DEI and believe that they have arrived. And I'm gonna give a prime example. From 2010 to 2015, when I defended, we studied Dr. Gloria Lanson Billings, Dr. Geneva Gay. We studied cultural responsiveness. We studied cultural relevance. We studied critical race theory. We studied critical whiteness. We studied all these different things. However, white fragility was not out at that time.
That's right. Yeah.
Anti-racism was not out at that time.
Correct.
So guess what? I, right now, as the supposed expert in my district, in this area, in my network, am now having to go back and study anti-racism and fragility. And all of these things that we didn't study at that time, which is why they were telling us we got to finish in 10 years, because after 10 years, you got to start over.
You got to start over.
Everything, new research comes out. So I just want to go back to that because I'm seeing it and it's popping up. We're getting all these startup companies all of a sudden where people had never engaged in this conversation. And here we are. Now I'm going to help you. You're going to help me when you haven't even unpacked your own identity.
Yeah.
You're reading research and you're reading books and you're reading articles, and then you're going to come tell me what I'm supposed to do, and you've never lived this, which takes me to your question.
Yeah.
My lived experience in DEI started in 1980 at Solomon Coles Elementary. That's where it started. I didn't realize it started there until I started my doctorate at Texas A&M. In 1980, I had two Black teachers, two Black women teachers. This may not be smart. You see what I'm saying? So I started realizing, like, wait a minute, I had an advantage because the research shows, the research that's coming out talking about what happens when children of color have staff of color, particularly African-American Black children having African-American Black teachers. I had two in first grade. And then I had Ms. Wanda Perry in fourth grade. And then I had Ms. Turner in sixth grade. I had Mrs. Lois Jefferson and Coach Bridges, who were our PE coaches. And then I had a Black male principal starting in third grade with Dr. Sid Garner. Actually, we had one before him. I just can't remember his name, but Dr. Sid Garner is the one I remember because he's the one I finished elementary with. So that's where my journey started.
Yeah.
Going into middle school and high school and going to Prairie View and starting to recognize some of the curriculum things that I missed by going to an HBCU and discovering things about the American Revolution and about the Civil War and about World War II that was never taught to me from K through 12. Yes, we had Black History Month. Yes, we had celebrations here and there, But there are some nuances because now, again, here we go. We need to, everybody's jumping on the board. We need to change the curriculum. Where do we put in African American studies? Where do we put in Latino studies? Where do we put in LGBTQIA studies? Where do we put in Asian American studies? All these things are coming up. And then HBCU is where I discovered I should have been learning this.
Yeah.
From kindergarten to now. So when I became an English teacher, the first thing I did was walk in and look at the curriculum. And when it said traditional curriculum and the text of essential knowledge and skills, I noticed very quickly, like, wait a minute, all the traditional curriculum does not say Langston Hughes, my favorite poet.
Yeah.
It doesn't say County Cullen.
Hearst, yeah.
It doesn't Zora Neale Hurston. It doesn't have any of these individuals in it.
Yeah.
So I started adding that stuff in my curriculum, in my lesson plan. Go ahead.
But to your point, and you know how we do, we bounce and we jump.
Yeah.
But I think, and I actually had a good friend pick up the phone and call me, which I appreciated. Although I battle with how much educating do I want to do in this moment, right? And about why I believe what I believe. Why are we out protesting? Why is everything going on? You know, I battle with how much of an educator at this point do I want to be, knowing that there's been lots of years that you could have spent educating yourself on my history, because I had to learn your history. And that's just the human thought that I have to put out there. It's sincere. But the question was asking me about systemic racism, to really define it and explain what it is. And I think without saying it, you are sort of illustrating the start of systemic racism in a sense.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit.
So I thought about this, not this question, but I thought about how I've explained this to folks.
Yeah.
So there's research out that says when African American children or when children of color see themselves in the curriculum or see themselves represented as teachers and leaders, they perform better.
Yeah.
Why did we need research to do that? When 85% of teachers are middle-class white women. So when we look at this achievement gap, shouldn't it read that way?
Correct.
Because the people who, if I'm a Caucasian male or female and the person in front of me from K through 12 looks like me, and everything in the curriculum is about me and everybody great in my lineage and ancestry, should not be successful.
Yeah.
So then we have these research studies and Black scholars are pointing this out. And I remember reading that and I said, well, why are people trying to debunk this? There are people literally trying to debunk that, but
it's logical.
But it's already there. Yeah. So if you're saying that we don't need people to look like the children for them to be successful, then why do we have a system that perpetuates that? Why do we have so many people fighting against diversifying the teaching workforce, the leadership workforce? Let's go outside of education. Why are people fighting against diversifying the C-suite? Yeah. If it doesn't matter, why are you fighting against representation for certain employees in the company or in the system when the way it is perpetuates that success? Mm-hmm. So to me, that's where the systemic racism is that you know that this is successful for you, but you don't want the same success for everyone else. Yeah. So you will block everything that has been successful for you from anyone else getting that. And that's about power and privilege. Yeah. That's literally when I explain equity and people understand, well, Aaron, why are people against equity? Because in order for people to achieve equity, someone has to give up. Yeah. A part of their power and their privilege. And this is for everyone. It's just like when you have children playing against each other, I'm gonna say it like that, playing against each other. You have an older child and a younger child. Yeah. The younger child is not as strong as the older child. So the parent says, share with your little brother or sister. Yeah. That's equity, because this person has to give up some power and privilege so the other can have access.
Yeah. 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 And I just don't know why that's so hard. I do know why it's hard. But the idea that we are still having to fight that power, but power is it's a powerful thing.
Yeah.
In a sense. It's a powerful thing. And I think for me, really,
well, let me answer that.
come on, catch it. This y'all this is what we do. This is what we do.
The reason why it's hard is because we've been fed the belief that if you work hard, you will be successful.
Yeah.
The meritocracy that our system is built on is a fallacy.
Yeah.
Because we have seen people with less credentials who didn't work hard, who had a name. And this is across all races and genders.
And not
and
just
I know we're talking about like racism and we're two Black people, but let's be clear.
Yeah.
This pull your bootstraps up, this meritocracy came from people who were already rich and empowered, telling workers that if you work hard, you'll get like me one day, knowing full well that's not going to happen. Now, juxtapose that on historically marginalized, historically disenfranchised, historically oppressed groups. Not only are you telling this to people that look like you and represent your culture, you're also telling this to people who don't, that you have stigmatized and separate. So that's why it's so hard for people to accept that, because they believe that they are where they are because they earned it. So if anyone moves past them, then they're going to make up the excuse where they probably didn't earn it. It was through affirmative action, or they needed a woman, or they needed a Black person, or a Latino, or they needed an LGBTQIA plus person, or they needed someone from this way. And because of that dynamic, and there are people listening who are going to know exactly what I'm talking about, the rules constantly change.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I call it the tale of two rubrics. Like, this is the rubric until I show up. And suddenly the rubric changes. Dr. Beverly Tatum talks about that in the book, Why Are All the Black Children Sitting Together, A Burst of Racism. The rubric suddenly changes when somebody who is not a part of this group shows, because now we're going to make excuses because we're not ready. And that's what's happening. And that's why it's so hard, is because folks don't want to give up that belief, that benevolence, that benevolence that I am here because I earned this, and I am gifted, and I am talented, and I am intelligent, and I am intellectual, and I am all these things. But then when somebody else shows up who surpasses you, we put up barriers to make sure that can't happen.
And that becomes so disheartening when, and for me, there's a fatigue and an emotional tax associated with the burden of that dynamic. It's one thing to have to deal with that in society as a underrepresented individual. It's even more taxing when we deal with that as a dynamic within our own culture. And I know we're not exempt from it, because it's just a part of the dynamics. But I think what's important about these discussions and discourses is that when you label, as you're doing, when you force us to identify what these frameworks and these dynamics are, when we experience it, we can begin to fix it. We can begin to make adjustments or call it out, but we can't sometimes call out something that we've not been able to put into words. We're just kind of going through, I had this realization the other day. I was cooking in the kitchen, watching the news, and I think I saw a post from a classmate, a classmate, one of my high school classmates. And it really bothered me. And I thought, wow, this is, And then it was like something hit me and say, but this has always been the dynamic. So I had to pick up the phone and call one of my very first friends when we moved to Houston. And she was the first Black girl that I met in third grade at Dunn Elementary. And in our discussion, we talked about the fact that the gifted and talented classes consisted of all students with the exception of maybe 4 or 5, and that's probably high, of all of the kiddos who live next door to Nimitz in a subdivision called Wood Creek.
Yeah.
If you're familiar, literally 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, most of those kids who were in the gifted and talented and advanced class was from that neighborhood, with the exception of 3, 4, 5 or so that managed to slide in. I don't think there was one student that I can think of that was from the Greens Point area where I was from. But as a Black girl who had parents who pushed and who had the conversations with me, all I thought, I just knew that I was, oh, y'all doing that? Okay, well, I could do that too. Let me work hard. But the reality of it is that literally I didn't realize that I was working hard and was still playing catch up. When I was in school, I didn't realize that's what it was. I was just being outgoing like Keisha, right?
Right.
But now as an adult, I'm sitting back looking like, no, I was playing catch up, but was just too stubborn to fall through the cracks, I guess, if you will. But as a female, I feel like that's even easier for me. I'm more concerned about my little Black boy, my son, which is why this conversation, I really want us to spend time on the portrayal of Black men and our Black boys.
It's
and we're talking.
Yeah, the noise is posting.
I know. We're starting with education, but this conversation expands far outside of education.
Yep.
I want to talk about that pipeline. I want to talk about the criminalization of our Black boys as early as elementary, middle school. And what role does that play in what we're seeing in adulthood?
Right.
And then we're going to get into some strategies. I want you to talk to us about, some few things that we can do to literally try to deconstruct and disrupt some of this stuff that's going on. But I think you do a really good job of painting the picture of what the problem is.
Right. So Dr. Carrier, one of our cohort members, and myself, he and I co-authored an article that was based on one of our papers from class, which is why I loved our program, because every paper we wrote, we were supposed to write it for either a presentation or publication.
Yeah.
And we talked about a term, compliant ambiguity. And what we talked about is that what happens to Black males, African-American Black males, from as early as daycare, what happens to us is that if we are not fitting into the structure of comfort of those that are leading and teaching us, then we are a problem. One of the questions, how does it feel to be a problem? How does it feel to be a problem? You show up at 5 years old in kindergarten, and you are, Dr. Janice Hale in her book talked about this. We're bouncing all over the place. We're happy, we're whimsical, we're jumping around.
We're sitting at the desk. This was
That's what we're doing. Our cultural knowledge. And we're told that that is not correct behavior.
Yeah.
That is not appropriate behavior. And then we look at one of our male colleagues who's non-Black, and that person is put in gifted for the same behaviors. That person is tested for gifted and talented for the same identical doodling and singing and dancing behaviors. We have the same reading level, we have the same math level, but this person is considered for gifted and talented for exhibiting the same behaviors I exhibit that I just got sent to the office for. Okay? But I'm 5, I don't realize that.
No, yeah.
So what happens is I begin to learn to function invisibly. I comply, I fit the system, and I navigate the system in a box and I become invisible while I'm still watching other people who operate in similar behaviors. Like you said, we're catching up. And I love how you said this expands beyond education, because for those non-educators watching this, you know what I'm talking about. It happens at work.
Yes, it does.
Where we become invisible so we can fit in. And then we still don't get promoted. We still don't get the opportunities. We still don't get this. And when other people are doing some of the same behaviors that we exhibit that is problematic, but they're seen as ambitious.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
So that's what Dr. Karen and I call compliant ambiguity, where we become compliant and become invisible. Mm-hmm. But as soon as we decide, you know what? I want to be seen, I want to be heard. Here's the problem. The pipeline exists parallel to our invisibility. They walk side by side, because as soon as I stop being invisible, I am now in the pipeline.
Yes.
Because I'm a problem.
Yeah.
So some of us navigate between two. And then when we become grown adult African American males in leadership, some of us are still navigating both.
Yeah.
And I say some of us because all of us aren't. I am blessed in my current position that I don't have to navigate both.
Yeah.
I am all the way, and people ask me all the time when they come interview me about the work I do, can you be you? Like, what do you mean, can I be me? Oh, I'm all the way me. Like, you call me Aaron. There are people watching this that knew me from school, from Prairie View, all the way back when. Griff is my nickname. Yeah. There are people that call me Griff. I am all over the place in the office and in the schools. I'm dancing with the kids. I am all the way me.
Yeah.
I am all the way me. When I was a principal, I was all the way me.
Yeah.
So I've been blessed in the latter part of my career right now, where I'm not navigating that anymore.
Right.
But I can't say that was always the case. So again, that's where it's problematic. It starts all the way back to when we in the school. Let me give you a personal example. My son, my oldest, is 13 now. When he was in daycare, a Montessori, and the way the Montessori method works, children move at their own pace, okay?
Yeah, yes.
So before he actually engaged in the Montessori curriculum, he was in the toddler room, okay? Or the pre-toddler room. Let's say he's about 18 months. I think he was about 18 months. One day we get there and the teacher wants to talk to us about my son's disruption of class. And I guess she forgot I'm an assistant principal. So when you tell me disruption of class for an 18-month-old, you know, I'm like, how can an 18-month-old disrupt a class?
What does that look like?
He's 18 months. He's going to be everywhere. Well, you know, when we do circle time, he talks to the other children. I said, what do you mean he talks to the other children? When he starts trying to get the other children to talk, I said, well, he's 18 months and he's learning how to talk. Mom and dad are both language arts teachers. I'm an assistant principal. My wife is a testing coordinator. He knows how to talk because in our home, per the research, he has a lot of vocabulary in his home, okay? Well, you know, we need him to sit for 10 minutes. And I said, okay, let's talk about brain research and you know, early childhood. You do know that they tell us to look at the age of the child for the amount of time they need to sit. So if a child is 12, expect 12 minutes before they lose interest.
Yeah.
He's 18 months. He's 1 year and 6 months. After 1 minute and 6 seconds, or I'll say a minute and a half.
Yeah.
Squirrel.
Yeah.
Squirrel. I said, so that's why he can't sit still.
Yeah.
Because in our home, he's allowed to run around and play. We don't make him sit still for longer than a minute because that's research. Should have seen the person's face. Mm-hmm. I said, so here's our recommendation for you. Put him in circle time, 2 to 3 minutes, let them get up and move around, and then bring them back.
Yeah.
I said, this is the same coaching I would give a teacher with children who can't sit still in the classroom. It's not that they can't. They want to move around. Let them move around. Put them in small groups, do rotations, you know, things like that.
And I think that is one of the foundation, that is one of the root, like if you can like remove all the theory, if you can not make it so, mentally provoking or thought provoking, it really boils down to, part of it is what your expectations, allowing people to live beyond your expectations or beyond your comfort or knowledge or what you think is appropriate.
I was going to say, not beyond the expectations, beyond your comfort.
You're beyond your comfort, right?
Because we tend to want to control people. And I say we, this isn't even just education, this is everywhere.
Yeah.
We tend to want to control people based on our level of comfort. Because as soon as we become uncomfortable, we put up our defenses. It's the fight. I'm uncomfortable, so something must be wrong. Versus I'm uncomfortable, what can I learn from this? Yeah. As we all know in education, well, now we all know because some folks still don't get this. You can't learn unless you're uncomfortable. Yeah. Like I'm a big old boy who don't work out a lot. But what I do know is that when your muscles hurt, that means it's working.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you're not uncomfortable, you're not learning. Yeah. We have a tendency as human beings not to want to be uncomfortable. Yeah. And that's why in our country right now, we have a lot of defenses. First, it was all the protests and all that was going on. Now that things have quieted a little bit, now we're starting to see the discomfort rear its head, where people are now in defense mode. And when we're in defense mode, now we want to attack. And that's what's happening. We just won't move beyond our comfort level.
Yeah. Aaron, you where did I want to go with this? I want to, you talked about two things that was important. You showing up as a leader authentically, basically. You are Aaron, you are who you are in those spaces. I want to talk a little bit to your counterparts, your other aspiring, young, and even, maybe not even aspiring, just African-American males in general, because I think everyone is at different stages and you can't assume that you are living whole, even if you are in a leadership or executive leadership position, because you still deal with just, how they say, new levels, new devils. You still deal,
yeah.
You still deal with, and so you've journeyed through, what it's like coming through every phase and every stage.
Yeah.
So if we're thinking in the space of solutions and practice and behavior, shifting our behaviors and taking ownership and control of our own destinies.
Yeah.
What are some of the practical first steps that you would give to anyone, either as a mentor, as a sponsor? What is the message to your counterparts right now during this time?
So here's a practice I do. I look for someone to mentor me, and I look for someone to mentor.
That's good.
So as I learn, I teach.
Yeah.
As I experience, I share. I'm gonna make some people uncomfortable right now.
That's okay. We're good at that.
If you are a Black male leader and you're in a position to open doors for others, do it. Yeah. And I'm not talking about when it's comfortable. I'm talking about be intentional and open the doggone door.
Yeah.
Know that somebody watching saying, well, that's easy. No, because every position I've been in education, I have found a way to open a door for someone else. It may not have happened this month or even this year. It may have been 2 or 3 years down the line, but I was very intentional with making sure that as I moved up the ladder, I had a lifeline behind me. So that's number one. Those of us with the power and the position to do it, do it. Quit sitting around worrying about it, do it. That's right. When we do it, hold that person accountable. Here's a conversation I have. Hey, there's an opportunity for you, blah, 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 blah. Now, let's be sure you understand that when you get this role, your job is to leave the door open for someone else. Don't get this role and have me find out that you're keeping other people from the same opportunity. So that's why I say, get a mentor and mentor. So, and I'm not, and so I have mentors who are Black men. I
Yeah.
have mentors and diversify, just like your portfolio, diversify your mentorship. So I have mentors that are Black men, Black women, Hispanic, Latino, Asian, white, doesn't, my supervisor is a mentor to me. This is a Caucasian white woman.
Yeah.
If your supervisor cannot be a mentor to you, you're not working at the right place. Because I read something the other day, you apply for a boss, not the job. Like, I'm not going to accept the job when I know that that boss is not somebody who can take me, who can help me get to the next level, or can groom and grow me, or will support me. So when they interview me, I'm interviewing them too. So get a mentor, get a mentee, get you a boss that can be your mentor. Hold people accountable when you create opportunities for them, and they're not creating opportunities for someone else. Because that's why we keep having gaps. Like, we'll get people in position, then all of a sudden it goes away. Like, no, there should be somebody in the pipeline that is there to replace you or have another position somewhere else.
Yeah.
So let's talk about behaviors, because you talked about behaviors. I don't want us to get, because I did have a conversation with somebody. We were on Facebook in one of the private groups, and a person, a Black male, went for an interview. And the feedback he got was that he wasn't, what's the word? Not passionate. Let's say it was passionate. That wasn't a word. He didn't come off as passionate.
Okay.
Some of the advisement he got was how he should show up in his demeanor. So I DM'd him and I said, oh, no. And we had a 1 hour conversation. I said, what you're not going to do is go in and change your demeanor.
Yeah.
If the feedback you got was that you weren't passionate, that's not even on the hiring rubric.
No.
Again, the teller to rubrics.
Yeah.
Where in there does it say that to do this job, this person has to be passionate? I promise you, in the job description, it did not mention passion.
Yeah.
That is a subjective, implicit, and sometimes explicit bias in hiring practices.
Yeah.
When I'm in interviews, I better not hear anybody on the panel with me say something about passion, some subject. I'm like, that's not even what we're interviewing for. Yeah. So don't change your behaviors in the interview. You go in exactly who you are, know the company, do your research. And here's something that Dr. Chance Lewis, shout out to Chance Lewis.
Dr. Lewis.
This is something he told me. He said, Aaron, what separates you from every other African-American Black male PhD? He said, what separates you from every other PhD in the country, regardless of race and ethnicity? He said, you have to determine who you are and what separates you from everybody else. What is unique about you? Folks, what is unique about you that you can sell? What's unique about me is DEI started for me in 1980.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, there is nobody in this organization that has lived my work the way I have.
That's right.
And I'm a P12 practitioner who also publishes and presents nationally.
Yeah.
That's what separates me from a lot of people in my same role in public education. Yeah. Is that I know that I do things, or I have the capability of doing something that others can't do. I'm trying to find the uniqueness in myself every single day, Dr. Watt.
Yeah.
Find the uniqueness in you every single day and recognize that somebody you're going to run into does it better than you. And when they're doing it better than you, learn from them. Don't be jealous. Don't get all upset.
Yeah.
Learn from them. So, Dr. Watt, you got your own show. I don't have a show.
Right.
I don't know if I want a show, because sometimes I might say something. Like Bernie Mac, I might say something.
I know, I thought about that. I was like, okay, so let me know where the mute button is, because when my brother get going, I need to know when.
like if I wanted to get a blog or a podcast or something like that, guess what? I would reach out to you.
Yeah.
Dr. Stacey McCallum has had me on her show. Yeah. I would reach out to Forest of the Range with Dr. Mike Robinson. I would reach out to these folks that I've done work with to find out how to do that, because they're doing something better than me. So I'm always trying to seek to get better. And lastly, I know I'm rambling. Don't stop learning.
Yeah.
Carter T. Woodson, Miseducation of the Negro, said,
Yeah.
the problem with the Black PhD and doctorate is that when you get your credentials, you stop growing.
Yeah.
Even if you don't get a PhD, don't stop growing.
Yeah. Lifelong
Don't stop learning. It is 2020. People call me an expert all the time, and I correct them and say, no, I have an expertise.
Yeah.
Not an expert. I have an expertise. And I now have to go study anti-racism.
Yeah.
I never studied that. I have an idea what it is conceptually.
Yeah.
But I don't know the research on it, and I don't know the practice on it. So
And
over the next week or two, I'm going to learn it.
And I think as we move forward in this time, as people offer wisdom on things like anti-racism, I think we have to be very careful to do exactly what you said, which is make sure that we really have a good grasp on what it is and how it shows up in the spaces that we are in. It's easy to have some general conversations like anti-racism, but I'm all about really understanding the implications of these types of dialogues and discourses. I'm all about understanding, okay, now that we have this information, is it presented in a way that can change behaviors, that it can change policies, that it can change frameworks and how we hire, how we fire, how we build the economics of our community? Is this information transferable into practice and action?
Yes.
Exactly. And we have to juggle with being careful with it, because social media gives everyone a platform to spew information or dialogue, and it's great. But I always say, for me, I just did a webinar the other day, even for my chapter, and what was most validating is that they walked away expressly communicating that their behaviors needed to change, and not just that it needed to change, but here is what we need to do. If I'm not changing your behaviors and your actions so that we can improve outcome, we're just talking, right?
Basically.
Yeah, we're just talking. I wanted to chat a little bit though about the economics of our communities, and why is it drastically important for us to reframe the portrayal of our African American or Black men and the impact that has from an economic standpoint. I know that your research, Aaron, when you were finishing your dissertation, was really politically based a little bit. And I think when you start talking about policy and the economics and economical structure, because that's where the money is. We're tracing the dollars.
Yeah, trace the dollars.
Speaking of Dr. Lewis and Dr. Norvella Carter always taught us in our program that if there's a problem, follow the money, and we will figure it out. But I think in order for us, we have to shift the economics of our communities in some way. And I believe that we need you, we need my husband, we need other Black leaders, male leaders. We need to reframe the portrayal of our African American men if we truly want to impact our economic power. That's just me. Maybe it's because I have a Black son coming up. But I want to talk. What are your thoughts around that?
So my first thought is intersectional.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna go back. Remember I said you might find somebody better than you.
Yeah.
So one of the things we got to remember when we talk about reframing the perception of Black men, this pitting of genders and sexualities against each other is a problem. It's very problematic. When we want to be Black male leaders, and then suddenly it's almost like taboo that for me to go get a Black woman as a mentor.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Oh,
it's almost taboo. If she's doing it better than me, she's going to mentor me.
Yeah.
Please, everyone understand, my wife mentors me.
Powerful. She
Weekly.
is.
Because
Yeah.
there are times where she has to say, "Hope, let's sit down.
Yeah.
You need to calm down and stop." I've had opportunities presented to me for more money,
Yeah.
for more power,
Yeah.
to which she would say, if you do that, what do you lose on the back end?
Mm-hmm.
You get $25,000 more or $100,000 more to work for this corporation that requires you now to move around time. Are you now ready to give up time with your boys? That's mentorship in the home.
Yeah.
So first and foremost, recognize that we got to be intersectional and recognize when people are doing well. Because what I don't want to do is speak from just a perspective of a Black male and start to separate by gender and sexuality. I don't want to do that because there's too many people with too many skills that do well. Another thing is we got to get out of the habit, and I was somewhat guilty of this when my boys were young, of not categorizing, not labeling, gearing our boys away from certain things. Like, I'm a former athlete.
Yeah.
So of course, early on, my boys are in sports.
Yeah.
My oldest started to veer away into the arts. He wanted to learn the piano. He wanted to take modeling. He wanted to take dance.
Yeah.
I'm like, you can't, because we got this flag football game coming up.
Yeah.
We got this, we got that. And I had to remind myself, stop.
Yeah.
He's not living my passion. I got to let my boy find his passion, even if that's not an area I didn't envision for him. So change the vision. That's sometimes we got to change our vision a bit.
Change it, yeah.
So my boy now plays like 4 or 5 instruments, literally, and all at the same time. The boy is like musically gifted, and then, as you know, he's the chef.
Yes.
The boy can cook like it's nobody's business, homemade cinnamon rolls and everything.
Yeah.
Imagine what would have happened if I'd have told him, no, you're not going into the kitchen to learn from your mom. You're going to go over here and play football.
Yeah.
You're going to play basketball. Okay. And the reason why that impacts economics is because my boys are starting to learn. I'm speaking personally. They're starting to learn there's other ways. Like, we keep seeing these memes and everything. Quit telling Black boys that the only way to success is to be an athlete.
Yeah.
Okay. Then wait a minute. I was going to say, then quit portraying that in the media in every movie.
Yeah.
Because it's not just us in our community portraying that.
Yeah.
Almost not every single, but the predominance of, I'm just going to throw it out there, Black History Month.
Yeah.
We know Black History Month. We talk about prominent African-American males. Who do they put up?
Yeah. If it's not Martin Luther King or MLK, it's that, yeah.
It's athletes and entertainers.
Yeah.
They don't even put up prominent Black men in the community.
Yeah.
So we, as a community, have to start to promote ourselves in the community in order for us to have examples of economic prominence that we can touch.
Yeah.
Not economic prominence that we see only on TV and the movies.
I want to hop in there and add to that, because I am a mother of an athlete who decides, he just loves it. But in that, we have been very careful to make certain that Zaire understands that is a piece and a part of who he is. And
Absolutely.
so our expectations in the classroom are still high expectations. In fact, Zaire loves music, and I know that you can relate to this because I remember a lot of your writings while we were in school. You would often, and I love this about you and your gift in terms of writing, you would infuse. We might see a Tupac line. We might see, you use our culture in spaces of research, which was powerful to convey our stories and our voices and so forth, and to help bring some of those theoretical frameworks to life in a way that others will understand. And so Z is very much into that same type of thing. That's what his daddy is. And so he said something, he was freestyling, and he said, "Daddy raised the G, Mama raised a scholar." And and he said, Daddy raised the G, mama raised a scholar. I've been a beast or something since I was a toddler. And and I could be off just a little bit, but what I found a lot of value in that.
Yeah.
Because though, Steve, I feel like I gave him some OGs, too.
Yeah.
I know Steve validated academically, but I felt like I heard him conveying that I'm more than an athlete, that getting my books was important, but we also have begun to have discussions with Z around positions on the field. If sports is what you enjoy, if you can't play on the field, let's talk about ownership. Let's talk about executive positions. Let's talk about the business of sports. Let's talk about business in general. He loves to eat. So we have those conversations around, owning restaurants and having diverse portfolios and real estates and different things. So I'm okay with you being an athlete, but we have a responsibility to teach them other areas of who they are, that we are not just shut up and dribble.
You know what? I remember a conversation back when I was an English teacher. Oh, I can't remember this boy's name. I hope he's watching. He told me, I remember we were having a conversation, and he said, hey, Mr. G, you know what? I'm gonna work at Foot Locker. And this dude was a fantastic basketball and football player. And I said, cool. I said, so what you gonna do with that? He said, I don't know. And I said, have you ever considered owning your own Foot Locker franchise? And he said, what? I said, imagine going to college and you don't make it as an athlete, but you major in business while you still work at Foot Locker. And I'm sure they have an intern program. And when you come out, have them pay for your MBA, which some corporations do. And then you eventually take over a Foot Locker and open your own.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he was like, man, I hadn't thought about that. Yeah. I'm like, that's the way we have to think. Yeah. We have to think about, like you said, ownership. Like, and I was about to spin off a little bit and talk about how we don't have enough African-American males in education. Yeah. Well, it isn't just that we're not going to school to be educators. We've been told not to be educators.
That's right.
Let's stop doing it. Let's stop telling people not to be educators. Like I told my wife, there's no way I'm not going to tell my boys not to be an educator, and I'm a district level administrator, and I can help my son get into the door.
Listen, yeah.
There's no way.
There was a time when my mother went to school in the 74. I think she went to school, finished around 78. They took going to school to be an educator in our community was powerful. Yeah. We at one point historically, and this is research, and we gonna look. We at our 8:59. I knew we was gonna go a little bit over, but we put our educators on pedestals. Yeah. At one point, like to go to school and be an educator back then. We could go, we could bounce back into this, even back to what Black educators meant before schools were integrated. But that all of that leads back to, yes, it's what we promote and the exposure that we give our kiddos to help change and reframe our perception and even taking back the power of others who think that they can frame or give us our identity.
Right.
In a sense, by having those value conversations. Yeah. Okay, we are at the hour mark. I know this is gonna happen. We're gonna have to come back and have another conversation at some point. You know how this works. Because I want our listeners to really hone in on this. Is there something that we didn't tap into? If there was a message that if I could say, here you go, drop the mic on us, that you want to leave for people to think about as a action now. I kind of leave my trainings with, think of one or two things that you can focus on now if we want to move our movement forward.
Yep. And I actually got this from a colleague in Colorado Springs. When my high school was implementing restorative justice, cannot recall this man's name, Caucasian white man, and we were talking about my high school and what we wanted the community to know He looked me in my eyes and he said, Dr. G, you have to control your narrative.
Yeah.
And I said, control my narrative. He said, there is a narrative out there that is not your narrative. It's everyone else's narrative.
Yep.
How are you going to control your narrative? And that's my advice. Control your narrative. And that's how you keep from having people tell you who you are and having people label. People are going to label and categorize you. You don't have to accept it.
That's
And
right.
this is for everybody, not just Black males. Control your narrative. But Black males in leadership, we have to control the narrative of who we are. Control. Yeah. And how you control it is not enough time to talk about that.
That's right. Yeah, we have to come back. Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you right now that when I show up at work at 8 o'clock, everybody in there knows exactly who I am, why I'm there, and what's going to happen on that day. Yeah. Not specifically, but they know when Aaron shows up, he has a suit on. Not because I have to. I'm the only person that wears a suit in my office. Yeah. Because I choose to. It's not Eurocentric for me. I like wearing a suit. That's all it is to it. They know when I show up that I'm talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm looking at racial inequities. I'm looking at programming gaps. I'm going to meetings, and while I'm in the meeting, they know I'm listening for biases.
Yeah.
That's my narrative. Everybody knows when Aaron shows up, this is what you get.
Yeah.
Control your narrative. Yeah. I took this interview with my sister to control my narrative. Now, some of you have never heard me speak before. This is the first time, whether you agree or disagree. This is still my narrative because this is all the way me. Yeah. I'm DEI 24 hours of doggone day, intersectional for everybody.
That's
but
right.
I am a Black African-American man who's a dad and a husband doing this work. I know who I am when I do this work, but I do it for everybody.
Yeah. And I can tell you to those that have followed, who are in the Keey community, those of you who are new to the Keey community as a result. Now we've tapped into Aaron's network, so every week we'll get new people to this platform, that this is who he is. And one of the things that I valued so much during our experience, and one of the things that I've learned, is you always helped me stick to who I was. You always, I was a leader in healthcare who was at the intersection of education and healthcare in a unique way. And you would always bring me back to that unique experience. And that a lot of my power came from my direct experiences that I've had. Yeah. So it just came really natural for you to make theory simple, because you figured out how to live it and how to express it through action. So that I value, will always appreciate you. You are doing great work. I want you to continue to do that. Happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all of our dads out there who are watching. I know that Aaron is going to come back because we can have these type of conversations. And I think, honestly, Aaron, these conversations are just good. These are the conversations that society needs to have. They need to hear. Yeah. And I'm certain that we've triggered some thought tonight, which is, So with that being said, you guys, I'm going to close out here. It has been phenomenal coming to you again. I hope you've gotten your key to a better you, because the world is waiting on you, each of you. It's been great. This has been a wonderful Key Conversation, Aaron, and we will chat soon, brother.
All righty.
Okay, have a good night.
Everyone.
Mm-hmm.